All right, so now we're going to be starting. So, hello everybody. My name is Mahalingam. This is going to be our first Pathways webinar. And before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the organization, a little bit of additional information that is not only in the Discord server, but also in the Google Drive. All those resources are in the Discord server. But Pathways is a nonprofit youth organization that provides middle schoolers and high schoolers with the chance to learn about various multidisciplinary careers in a stress-free environment. And we do this through two main methods. The first method is the one that we're doing right now, which are guest speakers that are going to be coming here around every 2 weeks. So they're in different fields, such as we have a guest speaker in December who's in cancer research. I think we have one in March who's working in marketing. And we have more and more guest speakers who are going to be joining us, all in different fields. And they're going to provide information such as how they got into their career, the different careers that they were looking at, what interests they were in middle school and high school, and advice to y'all on how you guys can choose your own careers when there are so many options. And the second service that we provide is something that we call Converse Rooms. So this happens in the Discord server. It's a series of voice channels and text channels where people from all around the world, people who don't know each other or people who are friends, can join these channels and research about different careers and talk about what they've learned, talk about their own interests, and talk about what they've learned from these guest speaker webinars. And that's what we're going to be doing primarily. But the whole purpose, the reason why I made Pathways in the first place is because I found it kind of hard for myself to have the discipline and motivation to just wake up and start researching about a bunch of different careers. I found that hard for me. And I knew that a lot of my friends as well were struggling to find a career and have the motivation to research them. So I thought Pathways would be a good chance for people to learn and learn with their friends. So it's a lot more fun and less of a burden. Um, and the structure of the presentation for today will be my mother, who is who's my presenter for today, will be first giving off a presentation about, all those things I explained in the beginning, like what her career is, how she got into it, all of those sorts of things. And then after that, after 20 or 25 minutes, when the presentation is over, we're going to be having a Q&A. And in this Q&A, y'all can leave your questions in the chat. You can chat to everyone or private message me or my mom. Any questions that you have, any words of advice that you would like to receive. And my mom will do her best to answer all your questions that you have. And this is just a great resource overall, Pathways, to learn about careers and get valuable information that you wouldn't be able to receive from someone who's not in a specialized, field. So this is what we offer. Having people in specialized fields to just give you all the information that they have, free of charge, and just in a stress-free environment. And the thing about Pathways, which is the last thing that I want to specify before we get started, is it's not the type of organization where you're forced to commit a set amount of hours every single week. I know we all have busy schedules and it's impossible for everybody to make a webinar every single weekend or every 2 weekends. That's literally impossible. We all have busy schedules. So you can do as much as you can. You don't want to overstretch yourself, considering that everyone's busy, everyone has their commitments they have to make. So just take the most out of the organization as your time allows. And if you cannot make the meetings, we are always going to have the webinars recorded and posted on the Pathways YouTube channel. And the link to the Pathways channel is in the Discord server resources section. And in there are a couple things like the Pathways member Google Drive, which has a lot more valuable information that you should definitely check out. So without further ado, we're going to be starting now. If our presenter here wants to introduce herself and get the presentation started, that will be great.
Thank you, Vikram. Well, hey everyone, good morning. I'm so appreciative that you have taken the time to join us today. This has been a really fun project assigned to me by Vikram, and I reflected on my career and tried to kind of think about things that would be helpful to you, and I hope it's going to be worth your while. If you have questions, I welcome them. So let me share screen and get the slide deck going, and y'all can ask me questions in the chat as they come to you. Give me 1 second. All right. Everybody can see my screen okay? All righty. All right. So let's start off with my current job and what I do. And so as I was thinking about, you can see the slide deck, right, Vikram? As I was thinking about my career and what I should highlight for you guys today, trying to think of it from your perspective, busy high schoolers trying to get little nuggets of information. I looked back at, so it's been 27 years since I graduated college. That's 31 years since I was in high school. That's almost twice your age, right? And I thought, okay, how can I condense this and make it meaningful to you? And decided not to go along the path of, I was born in the bright, shiny year of 1972 and take you through like too much of a chronological history because that's boring. Instead, what I wanted to do was just give you some highlights. And the way we're going to do this is I'm going to cover my current role, where I work, what I do, and it's in a space called analytics. So we're going to talk about what is analytics. We're going to talk about why education matters, and I will share my history with you, and hopefully you'll be able to see why education made a difference. And how my first job, which is kind of a signature move that I made in my life, how it shaped my career and affected who I am to this day, so many years later. And then we'll wrap up with some closing advice. I'll give you 2 pieces of advice. I'm going to answer 3 questions and give you 2 pieces of advice, and then we'll see how that goes for you all, and what kind of questions you have and what direction you want me to go into. Okay. So let's start with here and now. So I work for a company called Vizient, and we are in the healthcare space. We are what is called a performance improvement company. So our customers are hospitals. That's who our customers are. And we work with and we serve almost 70% of the hospitals in America. They are our customers. So you probably heard of Baylor Hospital and Mayo Clinic and Cleveland Clinic, to name a few. They are all our customers. We work with them in all facets of their operations, from helping them run efficiently to providing better outcomes to the procedures that we go to the hospital to get done. So a whole range of activities that we do for the hospitals. Now, you can imagine with the COVID pandemic that we had last year and we're still having, our company had to rise to the occasion. There was a shortage of a lot of things that you might remember, and not just toilet paper, but there were shortages of masks and cleaning supplies and patient protection equipment, which is called PPE. Everybody, the whole country learned about PPE because there was a shortage of it. And so leaders from my company were involved with the government in helping find solutions to these problems. There was a shortage, and so we jumped in to figure out how to help. And last year, you might remember there were White House briefings almost every day where we were hearing about the state of the pandemic and the state of the supply chain shortage. And the CEO of my company was at those meetings. He was flown to the White House several times last year to meet with the then president, vice president, and the COVID task force. So I just wanted to give you some perspective of how we play in the national space and with healthcare. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about what my role and function is at Vizient. So I work in analytics, which is also known as business intelligence. And we're going to talk about what that is here in a minute. I have a team that is made up of 23 analysts, senior analysts, data engineers, QA analysts, managers, directors. These are all people that roll up under me. They're an amazing team, and they spend their time doing things like data modeling, prototyping, and developing analytic solutions. That's essentially what my function is. I've been at Vizient for 10 years now. And throughout those 10 years, I have grown, I've moved around within departments, and I've grown progressively in management. So I started as a manager, and now I am an AVP in the analytics department. So what is data analytics and business intelligence? What does it really mean? Does anyone have any ideas? Feel free to type in or let me know if you have any thoughts on what does that really mean? Anybody? Making graphs. Okay, awesome. That's great. We do make a lot of graphs. If I were to define for you what is business intelligence, sometimes people laugh when I say business intelligence because they think it's like an oxymoron. Business intelligence, really? But business intelligence is the process by which we make better decisions. And we make better decisions by looking at data, right? We do that to figure out how to increase profit, how to analyze customer behavior, how to predict what's going to happen in the future, how to look at trends. There are a lot of things that a business has to monitor and make decisions on. And you want to do that in a sensible way with data. And that's where analytics and business intelligence comes into play. So I want you all to do a small activity, a small exercise with me, all right? I want you to imagine that you are a CEO, okay? So imagine that you're the CEO of, let's say you are the CEO of a company that maybe makes video games, all right? So you're a CEO, you're running a company that makes video games. What are some questions that you have on a daily basis about your business? You guys want to type them in? I would love to hear what you're thinking when you're the CEO of the company that makes, I don't know, League of Legends. I guess you guys play that game maybe, or don't play that game. How to earn more money? Awesome. Great question. So ultimately, a business has to make money. Even a nonprofit tries to make money that then they feed back into the organization, right? So how to keep people invested in games? Exactly. How to retain your customers? How do you make sure that the people that are playing these games aren't getting bored of them? How do you keep them engaged? These are great questions. How do you sell more? How do you increase sales? These are all questions you would want to know the answers to if you were a CEO of a company, and many of you will be CEOs one day, I'm sure. So here's a cool little dashboard that someone has made that answers some of those questions. I want to show you a few examples. So here's one. This is a dashboard for a video game company. And what they're showing here is global sales by genre. So you can see that just looking at this is a story right here. The data is telling you, right? Right at the top, you can see that action video games make the most money. They sell the most. And puzzles and strategy sell the least. This is a word cloud, again, corroborating the same thing that this is showing us, that action games and unfortunately shooter games are what you kids like to play. And you can see things broken down by country as well. Some other examples, social media. So you might want to know how are, if you're a social media company, you might want to track your media activity, your popularity, like how many followers do you have? How many tweets? How many engagements? What's the traffic like to your site? And then still some of you might be interested in something like Squid Games. And you might want to know, hey, how did the episodes do? Which episode had the greatest ratings? Which one didn't do so well? What can we change in the future, right? So these are all different ways in which data and analytics tell a story to answer a question that helps you make a better decision. And I can go on and on because I love this stuff, but I will stop. And we will move on to the next bit, which is education. Why education matters. So I'll tell you a little bit of backstory about me. So I grew up in India in a little city called Kolkata, which used to be called Calcutta back then, and back in the 80s. And this matters. The fact that it's the 80s is not just to make a joke about myself being old. I am old, but it has a relevance, which I will come to in a bit, of why me growing up in the 80s in India actually affected some choices that that I made in my life. And I went to a school called La Martiniere for Girls. This is a really great school, I say so with pride and objectively as well. Started by a Frenchman, and it was really one of the greatest times of my life. And in school, I loved math. I also loved biology, anatomy especially. I loved studying all these different organs in the human body and what they did. I also loved to write. I did a lot of creative writing and poetry, and I participated in competitions between schools. That was a thing, and it was great. And I also love Shakespeare. And I love Shakespeare, and this is not about, we're not talking about English today, or I could tell you so many things about why I thought Shakespeare was just one of the greatest writers that ever lived. So back then in my school, when we finished 10th grade, we had to make a decision of which path we were going to take. Because in 11th and 12th, so junior and senior high school, you had to focus already at that point on whether you wanted to do humanities or science or economics and commerce. Those were the three pathways, and you had to know which one you wanted to take. So I told my parents, that I wanted to be a doctor. And they were not convinced. So they had some memories of me being scared of needles and passing out at the sight of blood. And they were like, I don't know about that, Kamala. I don't know if being a doctor is the thing for you. And my dad was an engineer, and he had his own business. He had an electrical engineering business, and he made electrical panels that were used by a company called Indian Oxygen that basically manufactured and packaged and sold oxygen to large companies, right? So dad had his own business, and so he would kind of talk to me and try to influence me. And one of the things he suggested was around this time. So I was kind of a little more on the shy side until high school. That's when I really started to become more vocal and participate in a lot of things. And I started doing debate, and I started being in theater, and and I was good at presenting and being around people. And so dad said, what about business? You're good at math, you're good at working with people. What about studying economics? And maybe you could run the family business, or you could start your own business. And so I was interested. At this point, I wasn't attached to any one career. I was still kind of exploring things. So this was an interesting idea to me, and I thought I would pursue it. So in 11th and 12th, I chose economics and commerce. And of course, we still had to do an English class and a math class and language, and you still have to do some of those things, but you kind of focus in these areas. And so when I finished 12th grade and it was time to go to college, I decided to come to the US. We didn't drive, we flew. We did have planes in the 80s. So we came to the US, and I decided to study economics. So I signed up for a Bachelor of Arts at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. And here's where something very interesting started to happen. So I was part of a liberal arts program, and a liberal arts education in college at the bachelor's level is focused on giving you a well-rounded holistic approach to your life and career. So instead of focusing and saying, you will do only science, you will do only math, you will do only this, you get a chance to, for the first 2 years, freshman and sophomore year, you get to explore a lot of different things that you wouldn't normally do. And the idea is so that you can have a well-rounded education. So I took a course in music appreciation, and I took a course in writing. You guys know, I just told you how much I loved writing. And I learned, I had an amazing professor who was key in teaching me how to condense what I had to say and be brief and be, make a point with punch, but not, wax lyrical about things. And so I learned a lot of great things. And the greatest gift of all that I got actually was, because I could try so many things and you're encouraged to try different things, I took a class in computer science. Now, remember I told you that I went to school in the 80s in India, right? And we didn't have computers back then. So it's really hard for you guys to think about a life without computers, I know. But we had no computers, and I had never touched a computer until one summer as a high school student, where my dad signed me up for a 1-week camp, which was very, very short. And I did love it, but it wasn't long enough for me to do much with it. So when I got exposed to computer science at UMKC, it was a completely different world for me. And I really was just blown away by it. It was logical, which I loved. It was creative because you were writing programs, you were writing code to make things. We made games. They weren't all these GUI games with shooters and things like you guys have today. Technology was not that advanced, but they were command prompt games and mud rooms and things like that. And we solved problems. So this was great. Like, it took all the things that I loved together, and I just loved it. I spent hours in the computer lab, and I participated in hackathons, and I joined the American Association of Computer Programming. And I mean, my life just changed. And so that was it. I decided in my sophomore year, I was changing my major. I changed it to computer science. I kept my economics, but as a minor. And I decided to transfer. I transferred to Brandeis University in Boston. I was like, I need more excitement. This Missouri, Kansas City is not working for me. And so I moved to Boston. And when I graduated, it was with a degree in computer science. So my skills toolkit. So if you think about like a toolkit that you have of the skills that you need to do your job, right? At this point, I had math. If I told you about what I do these days, right, with analytics, we use a lot of math in what we do, a lot of statistics. We do programming because we're building these tools electronically, right? This is not paper drawings. And it's creative. We're painting stories with data. So this is what I had in my toolkit so far. And now I want to talk to you about my first job and how it shaped my career. So my very first job was at a company called Natural Intelligence in Boston. It was a startup company. It was a consulting company. And I had to wear a lot of different hats, which is what you have to do in a small startup. So I was a software developer, and I learned to be a consultant, and I had to manage my own projects, and I had to provide tech support sometimes. Somebody would call and say, this isn't working. And I'd have to say, okay, well, have you clicked this? And did you restart? And things like that. I had to learn business analysis, which is how you figure out what is the problem you're trying to solve. You're analyzing the business problem. And I was also a technical architect. I was designing the solutions. Like, this is what we're going to use a SQL Server backend. We're going to do this for the front end, designing the whole thing. So I wore a lot of different hats. And the thing I want to point out to you is that each of these circles here is a career pathway on its own. Just imagine. And I got to sample all of this in my first job. So at the end of my first job, I now had more things in my toolkit: business analysis, critical thinking, presenting, collaborating, and management. And all of these things together are things that I use to this day in my job. So finally, closing advice. So what are the things that I think you guys should take away from this whole presentation, aside from my great life story, which I know is riveting? Two things that I want you to take away from here. One, know your strengths. It's very important for you to know what are you naturally good at. That is important to be aware of. There are a lot of resources you can take advantage of that I want to point out to you. There's something called the Myers-Briggs Test. You should definitely take it. It's a long test. I think it takes a while. It's got 100 questions or something. And at the end of it, you get a 4-letter code that is that sums up your personality. And it will help you kind of have a sense of who you are and what kind of careers are good for you. A couple of really important books that I have read and utilized in my own career reflection and deciding. What Color is Your Parachute? It's a great book. It's been around forever. I took these tests in high school. I took them in college. They just help you kind of figure out, what are your skills? What are some careers for you? Strength Finders is one everyone in my company has to take. Everybody has to take this test. And at the end of it, you get a long list of your strengths, but you get your top 5 strengths. And it's really amazing once you know what they are, because you'll notice how you use them. You'll become more self-aware. And the reason it matters is, I think the sweet spot, this spot right here of what makes you happy, is when you align your interests with what you're good at and the career options. So this also plays into the picture, because every 10 years or so, careers change. And the jobs that you all will have available to you, we never had growing up. The future is changing. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, there's so many things coming, even in my space. There are jobs coming that have never existed before, ever. So you have to look at all of these 3 things and try to find this intersection, which is, I think, the place to be for your career. Then you're happy. And the second thing that I want to leave you with is try different things. I told you about my journey and how I got here. In the olden days, in my parents' generation, and even in the early days of my career, there was this notion that your career is a ladder. You choose a path, you choose a swim lane, you stay in it, and you just grow in it, right? Which is this picture up here. That's out. That doesn't work anymore. The people who research careers have figured out that people change careers these days. It is going to be normal for people to have 2 to 3 careers in their life. That is a very different world than my parents, your grandparents, who would have one job, one company, and that was how they retired. So try different things. I tried to show you that, the things that I did in my first job, remember I told you about that. I got to try so many different things that it really helped me figure out which of those things I liked doing. And you don't have to wait for your first job to try different things. You can volunteer. You can take short classes on a weekend, shadow professionals. And then when you do start working, or even in school, try different things. Somebody asks you to do something, some teacher asks you, hey, can you help me with this assignment? Can you help me with this? Don't just like shrug it off. Oh no, I'm so busy. Think about it. You might learn something from there. We are the result of all of our experiences. Everything adds up. And when you look back one day, like I looked back for this project, so many things started to connect for me that I hadn't thought about. And it all just comes together and makes me who I am today. So make sure you take those opportunities, look around you, and try different things. I think that's really, really important. What questions do you all have so far? I'm at the end of my presentation, so I welcome any questions, anything that I didn't cover or that I raced through that you want to hear more about, anything I didn't answer. Do we have any questions, Vikram?
Before we get into the questions, I just want to say like thank you so much for your presentation. That was amazing. You covered a lot of information that I just didn't know about. For all of the questions that you have, you can either private message them to me, you can private message them to the speaker, who is my mom, or you can private or just message it to everybody. Or if you want, you can just raise your hand and ask a question. So these questions can either be specific to, business intelligence or advanced analytics, or it can just be in general what you need to find in your daily routine. Because I know as a very busy high schooler, it's very hard to find the motivation to just research careers. If you're looking for any advice about how do I specifically learn about different careers, like what does researching careers even mean? Um, I think my mother, the presenter, I think referred to like volunteering as a chance to have different experiences. If you want any ideas of how to volunteer, where to volunteer at, you know, you can leave those questions in the chat. So I'll give you all a few minutes, like maybe 2 or 3 minutes, to think of any questions that you have. And if there are no questions, then we'll just end the meeting early. So take your time, think of some questions, leave them in the chat or raise your hand, and we'll get to them as soon as we can.
Okay, so I wasn't here for like the majority of the meeting, so can I just get like a summary of what happened, basically?
Well, Mihir, it's going to be hard to summarize my summary because my summary was a summary of 27 years of working. I don't know if I can
Really?
truly summarize for you, but Vikram is going to share the recording on YouTube and you can watch that. I think it's probably
Yeah, I'll
like
watch that.
20-ish minutes. But yeah, I mean, basically what I did was I just through my career journey, just wanted to share with the group what I do today, which is I work in analytics. So I shared a little bit about that. I talked about my education and the choices that came up during my education, from choosing a major in college to choosing a career, how I kind of navigated that and what opportunities came my way. And then I talked about just a couple of closing advice things for you guys. I don't know if you caught that part here, but definitely you want to make sure that you are aware of your strengths. Like, how many of you, give me a show of hands, how many of you feel like you know what your interests, let's start with interests. How many of you know what your interests are? Like, what interests you out of all the things that you study in school and that you do? What is interesting to you other than, so YouTube and video games don't count. Other than those, do you know what your interests are?
I feel like I know what my interests are. Like I'm more interested in math and science than English and history. But at the same time, I feel like I don't know much about how those strengths correlate to a different career to actually help me make a decision about what path I want to get into.
Yeah, that's a great point. So, and I see a few thumbs up. So, you guys are definitely aware of your interests and you want to know, okay, I know my interests. Now, what do I do with that? What career options do I have? This, What Color is Your Parachute, is a really great book. If you don't have the patience for the book, you can look them up. Just Google this and you'll get some great resources on the website for how you can directly see, okay, I'm interested in public speaking, let's say. I'm not, but let's say I was. What are some careers? I'm interested in math. What are some careers? So there are lots of resources out there already. And this is just one that I'm sharing with you. Strength Finders is too, but you have to take the test first. You have to take a test and then it tells you what your strengths are. And then you can look at what kind of jobs are suitable for people with those strengths. Does that help, Vikram?
Yeah, definitely. So the presenter here just offered a bunch of resources to help you clarify what your interests are and how those correlate to different careers. But at the same time, it still might be hard for a lot of you to just get up, take a test, and then research yourselves. So this is where the Converse Rooms in the Discord server come into play. So as you can see there, I can open up the Discord server right now. There's like a scheduling section in the Converse Rooms category that's called planning. So in there, you can like schedule different times that you want to talk with somebody else, research careers together. And researching careers is something that can kind of feel like you're just staring and watching paint dry. Sometimes it feels like when you're trying to research different careers, it's really not going anywhere. But I feel like you'll really see the benefits of the research that you do later on when you actually do have to choose a major in college, because I don't think anybody wants to be stuck in the position where they're forced to choose a major for college, but they have not explored 99% of the majors that are available to choose from, or all those careers that are possible options to major in. And this is the benefit of actually researching and researching with other people. You can get exposure to these different careers. You can brainstorm ideas. You can schedule times where you can volunteer with your friends. You can learn about different careers. And that's the whole point of this. And you don't have to be researching careers every last minute of your free time. You can just do like an hour a week or something like that. That's all you really need. But then the different opportunities that you have in high school too, like clubs or just trying to find research with professors, if you can possibly do that, like summer research. These are all opportunities that sometimes it's not a conscious decision that you're trying to research, but you can see the benefits of that later when you're choosing a career. So if there are no last questions, then I think we'll be ending the meeting now. Please just, if you have anybody else who's also trying to figure out what their career path is, invite them to the Pathways Discord server. You can get a shareable link, or I can send you the link if you need it. The more people that we have in here, the more careers that we can research together, and the more clarification we can have on what you want to major in college, or what you want to just focus on in life, or the different things you want to focus on in life. Careers are not just one thing, as the presenter said. There are different pathways that you can all combine together. Like if you're interested in biology and engineering, you can get into biomedical engineering, and then you can do summer research over that as well. So I'm going to be cutting the meeting short now. If you want to talk more about this, you can just type in the Discord server and we can get a conversation going. If there are no last questions, we'll be ending the meeting now. Thank you so much for coming, and hope you'll have a nice day. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.